Hey guys, it is me, and I am coming to you from my car because I have been trying to get this video done, and every time I'm working on it, I'm like, well, I need to wait till I can do it at home, or I wait for the perfect place. But I'm running kids here, there, and everywhere, and all weekend we've had different things, and so I thought, well, while you're waiting for somebody at practice, you have time to video. So here I am from my car. I'm not going to show you the floor or what else is in the car because it is a mess. But today we're going to look at Daniel. And Daniel is a 12 chapter book. It's not super long, but it is something that has a lot in it. It is compact with all kinds of stuff in it. And one thing, the little history, in captivity, right here in Daniel is in captivity by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who took people from Jerusalem to Babylon, okay? And he even gave them new names, and it specifically mentions several. It says, among them from the Judahites were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, if I said those right. The chief eunuch gave them names. He gave them Belteshazzar to Daniel, Shadrach to Hananiah, Meshach to Mishael, and Abednego to Azariah. So that obviously leads where we get those names for the famous Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego story in the fire. But we're going to start again. Like I said, we're just going to go through these books of the Bible, and I'm just going to bring out several different pointers that I noticed as I read. And Daniel, being in captivity, had the best attitude. Like, he had one of the best attitudes. And it was really funny that I was going to make this during our, COVID-19 times where we're all kind of quarantined in different spots or have different places where we can go, and it just kind of seemed like it fit with Daniel because he obviously was in captivity. So when you're talking about this in chapter 3, there's a verse, and it's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're replying to King Nebuchadnezzar, and he's mad at them and about to throw them in the fire, and he said, if you don't do this, you'll immediately be thrown into the furnace. And they answer him and they say, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to give you an answer to this question. If the God we serve exists, then he can rescue us from the furnace of a blazing fire, and he can rescue us from the power of you, the king. But even if he does not rescue us, we want you as king to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the gold statue you set up. And I find that very interesting because it says, even if he doesn't rescue us, we will still not do what you're telling us to do. And I think about the way that we can live our lives with that quote. I know we have lots of prayer requests, and have lots of prayers, and we ask for different things. And sometimes when they're not answered, we can doubt. I don't know about you, I can. And I need to write that down and pray for that attitude at times, because even if God doesn't answer my prayer, or even if this happens, that does not mean that I will not serve you. So I love that verse. And in verse 437, Nebuchadnezzar has had a dream. And in verse 437, it talks about, now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and glorify the King of the heavens, because all his works are true and all his ways are just. He is able to humble those who walk in pride. And this is where we see Nebuchadnezzar turn to God because of some things that have happened in this last chapter with Daniel in a dream. And that is just beautiful. You see this king that is, he built a statue of himself to be worshipped, and all these false gods and everything. And here you have him turning and saying that God is able to humble the prideful. And he's kind of talking about himself, I would think. Then you have this whole handwriting thing with that, and that's just creepy and weird. So that's something you definitely want to look up. Chapter 6 is the lion's den, Daniel in the lion's den, where he's thrown into the den of lions, and he escapes untouched. So that is a very famous child story. You know, you see that in children's books, Bibles, and different things. Chapter 9, if I skip over there, at the very beginning, it says, I, Daniel, understood from the books, according to the word of the Lord, to the prophet Jeremiah, that the number of years for the desolation of Jerusalem would be 70. And this is where we see Daniel's prayer, and he starts looking toward present tense tribulation, but also Daniel is a prophetic book, and he talks about the Antichrist and what's going to happen in the end times. It's really interesting stuff, and especially if you look at where we are today and what's going on now, it makes you think. But chapter 9, he mentions Jeremiah, and I think that's super cool because Jeremiah is a prophet, and we talked about him before. 10:12 is a beautiful passage. I'm trying to skip there. Sorry, the Bible's in my lap and I'm holding the phone. Verse 10:12, you have a vision of the glorious one, is what my Bible calls it. And in 7, it says, only I, Daniel, saw the vision. The men who were with me did not see it, but a great terror fell on them, and they ran and hid. And then you have this person talking. Some say it's Jesus. Some say it's the angel, Michael. So I'm not sure. Depends on which commentary you read. But based on the commentary I read, it said, some say it was Christ by the description, and Daniel responds like John in Revelation to the vision. So those are just some thoughts. But in verse 12, he says, don't be afraid, Daniel, he said to me, for from the first day that you purposed to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your prayers were heard. Isn't that awesome? Like, he's telling them, don't be afraid. And from the very first day when you purposed yourself to live and breathe and humble yourself before your God, your prayers were heard. And I think about us with Christ being at the right hand of God for us, interceding for us. Like, our prayers are also heard through Christ as he intercedes for us at times, or all the time. And that's a super cool way to say. In 10:13, it says, but the prince of the king of Persia opposed me for 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me after I had left there with the king of Persia. And this angel is fighting an angel appointed for the Persian power and trying to thwart God. And that's like spiritual warfare. You know, we wonder about how that works. It's right here. These angels, and the commentary I read where it says the prince of kingdom of Persia was supposedly Satan or a representative of him. And so you have this evil going this way and the good going this way, and they're physically fighting in the angelic world. Very interesting to me. And then 10:14 says, now I have come to help you understand what will happen to your people in the last days, for the vision refers to those days. And this, according to what I've studied, is where Daniel turns to talk about the end times, and starts to begin about the Antichrist and what will happen. And it's very, very deep stuff, good stuff. But he has all kinds of prophecies about the Persia and Greece and the south and the north. But those can also be translated to end times, matching up to some of the things that are said later on. In 11:27, it says that the two kings whose hearts are bent on evil will speak lies at the same table, but to no avail, for still the end will come at the appointed time. I just think about like politics right now and how everybody's on their own page and nobody can come to the table and agree. Sounds a lot like that. 11:3, if you look in a commentary, it talks about, then a warrior king will arise. He will rule a vast realm and do whatever he wants. That is talking, some people talk about that being Alexander the Great, and like having this huge history lesson on the north and the south and all kings in Egypt and Cleopatra, all that's mentioned. And so in some of the stuff that you can study about, it's super cool to learn about Daniel and talking about it. 11:36 through 45, talking about the future Antichrist. It says that then the king will do whatever he wants. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and he will say outrageous things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, because what has been decreed will be accomplished. He will not show regard for the gods of his fathers, the God desired by women, or for any other god, because he will magnify himself above all. Skip to 39. He will deal with the strongest fortresses with the help of a foreign god. It's very crazy and interesting here. In 45, he will pitch his royal tents between the sea and the beautiful holy mountain, but he will meet his end with no one to help him. And that ends 11, and then you get to 12, which is beautiful. At that time, Michael, the great prince who stands watch over your people, will rise up. Daniel prophesies this, and he's like, this is going to happen. He is going to rise up. And then it says, many who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, and some to eternal life, and some to disgrace and eternal contempt. Verse 4, but you, Daniel, keep these words secret and seal the book until the time of the end. And it talks about how he ended it. And he said, go on your way, Daniel, verse 9. For the words are secret and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, cleansed, and refined, but the wicked will act wickedly. And that's kind of how Daniel ends. The last verse says, but as for you, go on your way to the end. You will rest, and then you will stand to receive your allotted inheritance at the end of the days. And it's just, that's how it ends. Daniel ends in a very interesting way, saying you will rest and you will receive your inheritance. And I think about us that know Christ today, how one day, I know the midst, the chaos of this world, we can still rest in our hearts in the Lord. But I'm just going to be honest, resting right now is hard in this world that we are in, with all the things that are running around in my brain all the time. Mask, no mask, go to this, go to that, don't go to this, don't go to that. I mean, it's nuts. And then you work and you've got children and you're trying to do the right thing in all the different places. Rest is hard to find. And in Psalms, many verses talk about finding rest in the Lord. But ultimately, no matter what, if you and I have Jesus Christ in our hearts and have a personal relationship with him, we will find rest. Our burdens can be laid upon Christ as long as we don't pick them back up. They stay there. But at the end of our life, when our time is over, when the Lord has done his job in our lives and he decides it's time for us to go home, there is a complete and utter rest awaiting us. And also a beautiful inheritance that we can't even fathom or imagine right now, that is in heaven, because we are sons and daughters of the Father through the blood of Christ, the death, burial, and resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. We have an inheritance. We are heirs to the throne. I don't know what that exactly is going to look like. I don't know how it's going to work. And I really just am pumped to even be included, because I don't deserve it. I am a wretched, no good, dirty, rotten sinner who has been totally saved by grace. And I couldn't be more thankful that I will one day sit in the presence and full rest of my Father through the Son. So guys, I hope you enjoyed Daniel. Next we'll have Hosea, in the midst of practice and running and driving, and who knows where I'll come to next for Hosea, but I will bring it to you. A Girl in Her Bible, signing out. I hope you have a great day whenever you are listening to this, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Bye.